The Horde Shooter, it may very well be one of my favorite genres. Something about having to cleave your way through an endless wave of jackasses and ne'er-do-wells. Something is so needlessly cathartic about it. About being a big bad motherfucker whose job it is to simply fuck shit up and go about doing small tasks on the side, whether it be surviving or getting shit done. The affection I have for it is almost all-encompassing. It's just good fun for the whole family, or in most cases up to 3 friends. I just want to look at them as a whole and point out a few notable parts of each game which makes them Horde Shooter. Now you may say, well, big groups of enemies, and yeah, that's a basic element and a very simple way of looking at it, but there's patterns that a lot of the more notorious games follow in specific. I've even made up a little acronym for it. I call it WAFTS, W-A-F-T-S. Waves, ammo and health, f***ing up, those dickheads, and shitloads of stuff. Each one kind of takes what I deem important to each one of these games, and while it may not be a center or a staple of each game, it is an important aspect to them in a broad, general sense of the term, and what each game does with it is up to them. So real simple, starting with WAFTS, Waves. It's the most self-explanatory one and is basically what the disembodied voice in my head that is youtube.com comment section says. Big fucking groups of guys, typically to kill in a grandiose fashion, but it's not just the amount of guys, it's the satisfaction in doing so. I recorded gameplay of a few of the games that I sink a lot of time into and felt like I could talk about and actually seem like I know what I'm talking about. Those in specific is Darktide, Payday 2, Left 4 Dead 2, and Deep Rock Galactic, each of which I really still enjoy and play touches of here and there quite often. Now when it comes to waves, they can be simply broken down into a big group of guys, but you can't merely just throw wave after wave of players. There's a time and a place. Pretty much all these games have some form of horde that appears every few minutes, except for Payday. It instead just has a horde pretty much 24/7 unless you keep a bunch of hostages. But I have this grenade launcher and a lot of disposable income.
It's a straight cash hit. You know how it goes.
Scout the place. I'll wait here. I'll just chill here if things turn south, yeah?
The following presentation has been approved for mature audiences only.
Stop it. Don't kill civilians.
It's just an endless horde of the fuzz. But for the other 4 examples, there's the group of guys who gather gregariously with each other just randomly in big piles around the map, or the dedicated horde notification noise, followed by, oh fuck, a horde notification noise just played. And then you're left defending whichever position you find yourself in at the moment, and if it's Left 4 Dead, 9 times out of 10, it's right before the fucking door. But these are necessary to the catharsis the game provides, whether you're the guy who stands up front tanking hits slightly off to the center so people get shots in, or the sharpshooter in the back taking out the special infected or taking out the big Praetorian. But for what it's worth, when there's that much flesh, it's hard to miss, not to mention the activity of spawning the hordes, which follows this really cool, almost 4-act story structure. You have the setup, which is the scream or the alert of the horde incoming, followed by the rising action as the first parts of the wave slowly start seeping in and leaking through. You and your allies are getting into the defensive position, getting ready. Then, obviously, the conflict, when the wall comes crashing down upon your position. You're chopping, cleaving, ripping through, and tearing, and it's a slow come down as you get a minute to breathe, the conclusion. It's a key component to get right, and as a tightly made, intense horde, is something else. It's almost like drowning, but you're struggling with every motion to keep your head above water. It's a beautiful thing. The catharsis from just barely making it is truly something I love. It's a key component. It's in the name, isn't it? Horde shooters. They better have hordes, better have them done right, more importantly. So when you go from horde to horde, getting run the hell down, immediately follow it up by taking your biggest machine gun and running their fade with enough firepower you gotta be able to conserve and get health and ammo where you can. Ammo and health remains such an important aspect because it's one of the best and most frequent ways to balance difficulty. It's not so much the mindless horde that slowly chips away at your health, it's getting access to those vital resources that bring it back up to keep you at full, which is keeping you in the game. Conserving your ammo is important too. Spraying and praying is fine and all, but shooting your machine gun, which is about as accurate as pissing with a hard-on at a sniper half a kilometer away, isn't gonna work. But they can get fucked, so they typically just get the box. Now, to be fair, in most shooters, ammo conservation is important, but in Deep Rock, none of the aliens have another minigun that I can pick up if I run out of bullets. In any modern military shooter, name the Call of Duty game, you can just pick up the nearest assault rifle from the nearest dead minority. Alright, that was a bit too real. Can we cut that? So, ammo and health. It's important. There's so many different ways to get back health and ammo. Left 4 Dead and Dark Tide both leave it somewhat up to chance with random health drops scattered around the map, but they both have predetermined points where you can still go and find health. They always will. Left 4 Dead has its safe houses. Dark Tide has its weird man surgeon things. Granted, Left 4 Dead has its AI director, so if you're doing poorly, it'll give you health, blah blah blah. We'll talk about it later, that's a entirely different topic. Now, when it comes to needing health, you need to fuck up first. I'm not talking no namby-pamby, oh, a hunter got the drop on me. I'm talking a full-fledged them kind of fuck-ups. Screw-ups, gaffes, goofs even, they're not something that comes up in design, it's something that comes from bad decision-making or just being high or drunk. Making bad calls and reaping the rewards of getting absolutely pounced on. Yes, it's a random occurrence, but it's the randomness which brings light to the situations. It also makes things tense and exciting. It is simply put, fun to fuck around and find out. It's this cavalcade of conundrums is what makes some of my most memorable moments. Like the amount of times me and the lads are rockin' stoning it up, and we get cocky as soon as we see the fruits of our believed huge penises immediately being swarmed and having our collective pants become shit encrusted. It's a collective experience that almost everyone has. It's fun to laugh at yourself. If you have difficulty doing that, don't worry, because other people will do that for you. Now, not to say this is everyone's cup of tea. Speedrunning thrives on people trying their best not to fuck up games. Take a look at the Deep Rock Galactic speedrun records. Doing all missions solo, doing all missions co-op, putting all the barrels in the drop pod.
It breaks my heart to tell you this, but no, the barrel will not accompany you on your next mission.
Sometimes folks will go for perfection in a run, getting it done quickly, getting it done efficiently, and I am all for that. Sometimes a good, clean run where it seems like they're throwing everything at you and you're half a step away from John Wick mixed with Rambo, fucking dealing with it with speed and precision. So we'll take this rule of fucking up and we'll make it fucking it up. Then it comes to T, which is the #1 reason why most of my games are fucking up and not fucking it up. Those dickheads, the specialist enemies who are there to simply disrupt and disorder, distinguished in their distillment to disarm, disbar, and displace you. Fucking disarag. They're important for adding a spice of life to encounters, with each one potentially making every playthrough vastly different. We'll use Left 4 Dead as an example, cause its group of special infected are something to behold. Each one makes each encounter so different just because of the nature of the enemies. Smokers and chargers who are great at singling targets out, jockeys and hunters who are great at picking off and punishing stragglers, witchers and spitters being amazing area denial, and in the spitters case just more damage for the previous group of fellas when they get a good pick, then boomers being, and for lack of a better word, crowd control. They're a blind and knockback, and they cause you to be stopped in place by a horde of the undead. You have not lived until you've played Versus and you push someone off a cliff with a boomer explosion. It is so laughable how it happens sometimes. And finally, the tank is a tank. The amount of combinations with spitters and boomers alone aren't worth talking about, because on one hand it's obvious, and on the other hand, I can stay here all night talking about them at the same time. But smokers pulling people away, followed with hunters jumping on a savior, chargers barreling through folks, pushing one off a cliff, jockeys jumping on people who got knocked next to it and pulling them off as well. Left 4 Dead 2 has such a unique combination that even outside of Versus mode, which, let's be honest, in Versus mode all these combos are so much more likely to happen, but they're still almost frequent. Left 4 Dead isn't the only example. Seeing the festering wave of bugs followed by the huge glowing calipigian of the Praetorian, or the indefatigable armor of the Oppressor, is too scenic. Dark-tide slews of gunners, snipers, ogrins, demons, and whatever. Payday's infamous dozers and cloakers, the medics who bring them all back. I could go on and on about these guys and what they accomplish, but at the end of the day, they are the real backbones of the wave, being what puts the thumb on you and what causes the most pressure. Even the design of these guys is important. Being able to pick them out from the crowd and each other is important. Seeing the tall silhouette of the smoker versus the crouched profile of the hunter. Seeing the bulky armor of the dozer versus the, well, quite frankly, big freaking fridge door that is a shield. It lets you know how you deal with targets. Do you bob and weave, backpedal, get yourself around the corner, or just pump firepower directly into their face immediately? It's one of the main criticisms I had of Back 4 Blood, which, when it first came out, was a blast, but as the game went on, I still had difficulty picking out certain special infected from each other, at least with just a glance. And quick decision making is what's vital to the game. That, and they just kind of stopped updating the game. Turtle Rock seems to have a thing going with that, first with Evolve and now Back 4 Blood. So, don't buy their products. Finally is the S in WAFs. Shitloads of variants. It seems obvious, but I still want to make an important note of it all. Having variants is important. If every cave in Deep Rock was the same, you wouldn't still play it. If every time a horde spawned in Left 4 Dead 2, there was always a predictable group of special infected following it. It's the variance that keeps people in the game, going for new runs and trying out different weapons or builds. It's the variance that keeps the games fun, replayable, and fresh.
It's
variance
that keeps Squidward in Philly soap.
Lilac.
And I wanted to talk about the types of variants, because you have player-induced variants and game-induced variants. What do I mean? Take a look at the 50 million guns and builds in Payday and tell me you're not at least half interested in a few of them. That's player variants. It changes how each heist is played on their part. Sorry to drop it on you if you're not initiated into the cult of the medic bag, but if you're going an anarchist sniper build versus a hacker grim shotgun build, you're going to be having two very different times. And it's all from just player interaction prior to the mission. Deep Rock and Dark Tide have a lot of this, whatever class you play, weapons you choose, overclocks, whatever, and they play so vastly different from one another. Going into a game of Deep Rock and playing the gunner versus playing a driller are two different things. The driller is more supporty, while the gunner is more, I shoot everything, E. And meanwhile, take a look at the game variance. Game variance is more specifically what the actual game does to make each mission different and take the players on a quote-unquote different journey. While Left 4 Dead doesn't have much player variance, besides what weapons and if players pick up and go on in depth about looking for items in depth. That's because of the AI director, which directly takes control of the game's variance, and in other words, to help maintain an even level of difficulty depending on what you choose. It's about maintaining flow while also not completely dicking over the player. Most Horde shooters maintain difficulty by making resources, ammo, and health finite. It's finding the stuff that is important and using it when it's just right. Left 4 Dead has the medkits and piles of ammo scattered around. I mainly want to focus on the medkits. You have health kits which fully heal you and replenish downs. You have 2 downs, and after the second your screen goes gray and you need to be healed with a first aid kit or it's game over. Simple. Now if you're like me and you suck, you go down a lot before you get to the next safe room for the coveted health and ammo refill. Well, that's when the director shines. The director will see that I'm low on health and that I suck, so they'll go out of their way to give me a little bit of leeway. Maybe they don't spawn a tank. Maybe they'll spawn some extra pills. Maybe they'll spawn less cars so my friends won't shoot them and alert the Horde every time. And if you're popping the fuck off, then they'll spawn more cars for your friends to shoot, more hunters and tanks, and less health all around. This all being based on your difficulty level of choice. It's a pretty genius system. Is it perfect? No, I've had times where it absolutely glitches out and I have to deal with like 30 tanks on a fucking Minecraft community map. But it is mostly well made, and it shines at times after high stress when you just get done picking the teeth out of your ass and scooping the organs and blood out of every orifice imaginable. It is well made. It's a genius enough system where even though every bisexual white guy has probably seen a video essay on it 500,000 times, I still have to give it cheers for just being so damn good. And I mean, that's really all the point of this one is. I just kind of wanted to gush about the Horde shooters because they could be so damn fun. Popping helmets in Payday, mowing down bugs in Deep Rock, just doing Ogren things in Darktide, and of course, being bad at Left 4 Dead.